It's Saturday, October 19, and this is Globespan 24x7 Week in Review. My name is Shakima Day. We'll take a look at some of the major stories for the week, beginning Monday, October 14 to Friday, October 18, 2019. What started as a normal day of business at Eldorado Trading, located at 63 De Silva Street, Newtown, Kitty, Georgetown on Monday, ended in bloodshed when a customer was shot and killed and others injured by armed bandits who are believed to have traced his vehicle to the business premises. We'll take a look back at that story.
Globespan 24x7 News was informed by residents that Dion Stall, a gold miner from Charity, Essequibo Coast, was shot during the ordeal and died while receiving treatment at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. Reports are that Stall was about to complete a transaction with the company and that the now dead miner had recently come out of the interior where he is said to be working. According to reports, Stall was reportedly shot while sitting in a motor vehicle bearing registration number PPP 6727 as he awaited the security to open the gate to the business establishment. It was at this point that a white 212 Toyota motor car drove behind Stoll's vehicle and stopped. From the surveillance footage at the scene, they can be observed trailing the businessman's car as it made its way down De Silva Street. Eyewitnesses revealed that as Stall was about to drive into the Eldorado Trading compound, the occupants in the white 212 exited the vehicle and accosted the men, opening fire on them. The driver, who exited the vehicle apparently rushing to Stoll's aid, was also shot along with the security who works at Eldorado Trading Company. Residents in the community recalled hearing the loud gunshots and took covers on the floors of their homes as the gunfire rang out for some time. The gun-toting bandits then reportedly made good their escape as the men who were shot in the exchange were rushed to the hospital for treatment. Stall reportedly died while receiving treatment at the said institution. The entrance to the business place had visible bloodstains, indicating that a lot of blood was lost, and another vehicle which was parked outside bore a shattered window. The car in which Stall was traveling also bore bullet holes. Police investigators were called to the scene, and several spent shells were retrieved by the lawmen during the cordoned-off exercise. Information reaching this newscast suggests that the gold miner may have been followed by the bandits to the trading company, where he would usually sell his gold whenever he came out from the interior region. And this is a theory that is also being explored by lawmen. Eldorado Trading is regarded as one of the country's leading private gold dealers, and this was said to be one of the first occurrences of its kind to happen at the business establishment. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Family members of two Berbice fishermen who are suspected to have been murdered in a recent piracy attack are still scouring the waters in an effort to recover their bodies. We'll tell you more in this report. The country was still recovering from the devastating aftermath of the April 2018 piracy attack in Suriname waters that left 3 dead, 11 missing and presumed dead, while 11 survived. Now, tragedy struck again, this time claiming the lives of 2 young men, while 2 are still missing and presumed dead. The bodies of 20-year-old Otto Lamar Petrie and 36-year-old Kowal Ajay Kisun have been recovered from the Abari Shorma hiker just days apart from each other. Both bodies were bound at the hands and feet. Family members of the remaining men, 20-year-old boat captain Vishnu Siram and Marvin Tamishwar, have lost all hope that the men would be found alive. Search efforts are still ongoing to recover their bodies. Tasha Sicharan, wife of Ajay Kisun, disclosed that herself and other family members learned from Facebook that a body was discovered, and they ventured to the funeral home where her worst fears were confirmed.
We go straight to the back, and as soon as he opened the ice box, I saw the clothes and it was my husband. I told him, I don't have to identify anything else. This is my husband. I couldn't recognize his face. There were no flesh, only a skeleton I could see on his face. His body, I see marks of violence on his belly. His 2 foot was swelled. I didn't identify the tattoo at the set time. I tell him yes, that's his clothes, because that's the very clothes he worked with. It's a long sleeve black Calvin Klein short. He had on a green and a vest and a blue short pants with stripes. Now I come back in front, the police take a statement from me. They tell me that, okay, I want you to go back to identify the body one last time. So I go, they pull the gloves out. When they pull the gloves out, there and there, I recognize a tattoo. There is a tattoo of King mark on his hand.
Family members were outraged, expressing their frustrations over the safety of fishermen who tread dangerous waters in search of an honest living. However, Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan told Globespan 24 News that while police are investigating the incident, government had pitched the idea to fishermen since last year for every boat to be given a firearm as a form of protection while on water. But according to him, this option was not taken up by the fishermen.
The police are right now investigating this matter, but what the government has done and has seen major successes over the last 4 years is a lot of aerial surveillance, and also keeping an eye on the suspected pirates on the ground. Those are the two important things that we have been doing, because they just can't have a police Coast Guard boat next to people doing their fishing. But we understand now that the number of these people are not really catching fish. They are going to bring a number of illegal items and a couple of other things and so on. And so we will have to do lots more aerial surveillance, and we will have to, there are a number of other things that we can do, like if there are innocent people who are going to be attacked, and I have spoken to them already about this thing on a number of occasions, that every boat that wants to go out there to defend themselves, we are willing to give them a firearm.
Ramjatan said that the option is still available to the fishermen.
I have left it with them. They're the ones that are supposed to take it up from there. They never did.
Nevertheless, the minister said his government is concerned about the issue and assured that a full-fledged investigation will be conducted. For Globespan 24/7 News, Shakima Day. The People's United and General Workers Union, which serves as the recognized union at Troy Resources, during a press conference on Monday, extended condolences to the family and children of Ryan Taylor, a technician who died at the mine after the pit in which he was working caved in on Tuesday, October 8, 2019. Lincoln Lewis, who serves as the union's administrator, said Taylor's passing is a stern reminder to all in the industry to be compliant with the safety rules. Lewis said the blame for the young man's death could be shared by two main agencies.
We hold those at GGMC and the Ministry of Social Protection equally accountable, along with the employer, for the conditions of work which Ryan Taylor and his colleagues are subject to working under. It was not unknown to them. In 2016, there was a severe wall failure at Smart State 3 pit in Karuni Mine. The union reached out to GMC and the ministry time and time again.
This, he said, was to secure their support and intervention to protect workers' lives and safety. Lewis also added that the behavior is seemingly becoming consistent, where foreign companies are allowed to enter Guyana and operate in direct contravention to the established labor laws. Lewis maintains this is cause for concern, citing the recent incident with Rusal and the lack of due diligence by government agents.
There appeared to be no respect for the laws of our land governing industrial practices, protecting workers, and dictating how foreign investors are expected to function. There appeared to be some individuals deliberately undermining the role of government and oversight regulatory body, such as the GGMC. Some individuals are either exercising clandestine anti-labor struggles, working as agents for unethical employers.
As such, Lewis said the union holds all involved accountable for a combination of lapses, giving rise to the circumstances surrounding Ryan Taylor's death and demand a full and complete investigation into his death. The union also stressed that every Guyanese life must be treated with with the law and as a matter of common practice.
This struggle of ours is not new. It is a struggle known too well to the working class of all generations. It is a struggle against exploitation, against colonial and neoliberal forces, from slavery to post-colonization. Foreign investors are welcome to our country. They are welcome to exploit our resources, but they must respect our laws and our people's rights.
Lewis reiterated that safety must be boosted as the first priority and not wealth as the risk of workers' lives. Meanwhile, engineer Charles Sires, who serves as one of the union's consultants, said mining cannot continue at the site unless certain conditions, which should have been met before the commencement of operations, are indeed reviewed.
Certainly, you should not work with anyone to advance mining at the site without an agreement that all of the monitoring mechanisms that were in the permitting regime are in fact in place. So mining should not recommence here unless all of the monitoring mechanisms are in place. At this juncture, I think it's incumbent upon the Ministry of Natural Resources, GGMC and the EPA to provide validation that these monitoring mechanisms that were mandated were in fact in place.
This is said would validate the operations at Troy Resources, and as such the MNR, GGMC and the EPA would be responsible for having a company that does not meet the requirements continue operations, since these risks would have been identified aforehand, hence preventing such a tragedy. The union will be lending all support to ensure the children and family of Ryan Taylor are adequately compensated for their loss. They are also determined to have Troy respect workers' rights to freedom of association and to be represented by a union, but have not indicated whether they will be pursuing litigation at this point. Ryan Taylor, a technician attached to Troy Resources, died at the mine after the pit in which he was working in caved. On October 8, 2019, the Ministry of Social Protection has since issued a cease order until their investigations into the incident are completed. In other news, a crash early Tuesday morning in Friendship East Bank, Demerara, claimed 5 lives and left 2 other people injured, according to media reports. Kingsley Bryan, who was ably assisted by our roving cameraman Naresh Sugrim at the scene of that accident, brings us full details in this report.
That was a relative of one of the victims in this morning's horrific crash at Friendship on the East Bank Demerara Public Road. Sounds of sorrow and anguish permeated the atmosphere at the Diamond Diagnostic Center as the news of more confirmed dead victims began to circulate. It soon morphed into a sight of sheer horror. The accident that claimed the lives of 5 persons at Friendship on the East Bank reportedly occurred around 6 hours on Tuesday and involved a police vehicle and a motor car, which was being driven by the now dead Leon Tucker. Reports indicate that Laverne Stobie, a police constable and a mother of 4 of 3rd Street Friendship, was on the public road awaiting transportation to go to work when Tucker, who is reportedly her nephew, drove by and offered to drop her. A recently married couple, identified as Herbert and Denise Josiah, were already in the said car on their way to work at the very Diamond Diagnostic Center. Tucker, the 33-year-old driver of the motor car, was attached to the Guyana Defense Forces Camp Stevenson at Tomeri. CCTV footage obtained from the scene shows the horrific head-on collision as the police vehicle slammed head-on into the car. The police car was being driven by a presidential guard, identified as Ronald Barker. of Betafo Acton on the east coast of Demerara, and he also lost his life in the tragic disaster. He is said to be the father of 2 young girls. From the CCTV footage, it was observed that upon seeing the police vehicle, Tucker applied brakes and stopped in his lane when the speeding police vehicle slammed into him and ended up inside a trench. Tucker's body was left protruding from the shattered windscreen, while the bodies of his aunt, Stoby, and the married couple were lying at the side of the road. The Guyana Fire Service was called to the scene to cut open the smashed-up vehicles to get the injured persons out. They were then rushed to the Diamond Hospital, where doctors pronounced 5 of them dead. At the Diamond Diagnostic Center, the scene was tense, with relatives and friends trickling in upon hearing the sad news. Staff at the said institution were also thrown into a somber mood after learning of the demise of their 2 co-workers, who are the recently married couple. Stoby's youngest son, who was at the hospital, was inconsolable and struggled to voice what he heard had transpired.
You're the last one, you're her baby. Yes.
One man identified as Travis Fullington, a 25-year-old presidential guard, is reportedly currently receiving medical attention at the Georgian Public Hospital Corporation. There are reports that the police vehicle involved in this morning's smash-up was an outrider vehicle for the presidential convoy. President Granger was also on the scene assessing the damage. However, in an official statement from the Ministry of the Presidency, the President expressed condolences to the families and friends of the deceased. In a subsequent statement, the ministry said the police vehicle involved in the tragic road accident was not part of President David Granger's convoy. The police vehicle at the time of the accident was headed south along the East Bank corridor in the direction of Temeri, while the passenger car was headed north in the direction of Georgetown. President Granger was at another East Bank Demerara location at the time of the accident, according to the statement. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
The Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association has spoken out against the brutal killing of a miner that took place in Georgetown on Monday and is calling for a thorough investigation into the matter.
The GGDMA says it is deeply saddened over what they described as a cold-blooded killing of one of its members and miner Dion Stahl yesterday as he was about to conduct business at the establishment of Eldorado Trading. In expressing its profound condolences to the family of Stahl, the GGDMA said the businessman's life was snatched away from him by, and I open quote, these animals, as he sought to conduct business in a transparent manner like any other decent citizen, close quote. The GGDMA is calling on the Guyana Police Force to focus its attention on addressing real crime and the removing of criminal elements from society. The association is also calling on the Minister of Public Security, Kemraj Ramshatan, to address this upsurge in crime across our country. Open quote, how many more must be robbed or be slaughtered before it is accepted that we have a crime issue in Guyana, which must be addressed? The time for seriousness is now. The Guyana Police Force and the Guyana Defense Force must weed out the rogue elements from among their ranks, since all they do is tarnish the image of the force and the law-abiding officers, close quote, the statement added. The GGDMA said miners, business persons, and businesses must feel secure to conduct businesses in and around the city and the country as a whole, and it is the duty of the police force to protect and serve. The GGDMA asked the following questions, and I open quote. Where are the police patrols? What has happened to the hundreds of vehicles and motorcycles the government of Guyana has given to the Guyana Police Force? Are these vehicles being used for its intended purposes? And what are the Guyana Police Force's plans to address this upsurge in crime? Close quote. The GGDMA says it refuses to sit idly by and allow its miners to be slaughtered by these rogue elements. The association is therefore urging all miners to take full security precaution and call on the joint forces to take the necessary actions so that the streets, neighborhoods, interior and towns can be safe to live and conduct business. Dion Stahl was traced by a white vehicle and attacked by gun-toting bandits who shot and killed him. At least 2 other persons were injured. The police are yet to issue a statement on the incident. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Good evening. Thanks for joining me for a week in review on Globespan 24x7 News. This is regional and international news for today. And for the news and details, within the last few years, Guyana's economy has seen an upward trend on international charts, and it is projected to skyrocket by 2021 by 33.5%. This is owing to its modern growth in the agriculture and extractive industry. This is according to the Consular General of Guyana in New York, Barbara Atterley. She made this announcement yesterday during an address to the attendees of the Get to Know Guyana Day held at the JFK International Airport. She said that the country in 2018 recorded a hike in its gross domestic product at 3.4% and boasted an annual GDP of $3,610 million. She posited that the strategic framework is considered much more in-depth when compared to other strategies that had been previously developed in Guyana as it relates to sustainability and management of the country's resources, thereby growing the economy. The strategies incorporate a more holistic view pertaining to economic and environmental well-being for Guyana's rapidly developing agriculture industry. The UNC Political Party in Trinidad and Tobago is calling on the Elections and Boundaries Commission, EBC, to investigate irregularities in the parliament constituencies that occurred before 2019 local government elections. The party has asked the EBC act in an unbiased manner as it relates to the party's concerns over discrepancies found within 4 marginal parliamentary constituencies. The UNC said it has conducted in the last 4 years a house-to-house examination of a list of registered voters in each constituency to physically meet each voter as part of its mandate to build communities and enhance its representative capacity. The opposition claiming that upon completion of the exercise, 1,648 inconsistencies were discovered. To this end, an investigation has been launched to iron out the issues. Ecuador's government has agreed to restore fuel subsidies in a deal with indigenous leaders to end mass protests that have been brought to the capital. The UN says President has imposed a curfew enforced by military, but according to a joint statement, government had withdrawn an order removing the fuel subsidies. The statement said with this agreement, Ecuador government is committing to restoring peace in the country. The decision came after the 2 sides held talks brokered by the United Nations and the Roman Catholic and nearly 2 weeks of violent demonstrations by rebels. The 2 sides will now discuss a new law to ensure subsidies are not exploited by people who are smuggling fuel to neighboring countries. An official working close to the U.S. impeachment inquiry has said that the House Intelligence Committee issued a subpoena to former National Security Council official Fiona Hill because of White House attempts to direct witnesses not to cooperate with the House impeachment inquiry. According to that official, because of efforts by the White House limiting any testimony that does occur, the House Intelligence Committee issued a subpoena to former National Security Council official Dr. Fiona Hill to compel her testimony last week. As is required of her, Hill is now complying with the subpoena and answering questions from both Democratic and Republican members and staff Top Republican on the Oversight Committee, Jim Jordan, said Hill had been subpoenaed even though she was willing to testify voluntarily. Leaders of the European Union has offered to extend Brexit beyond October 31st if the new deal is voted down by the Commons in a blow to Prime Minister Boris Johnson's strategy. Johnson had been seeking to pitch Saturday's vote in the Commons as a choice between deal or no deal after coming to an agreement with the EU. Reports stated that Johnson, supported by Jean-Claude Juncker, casting doubt on the possibility of a further Brexit delay, but the heads of state and government did not follow the European Commission's president leader. A summit announcement issued after 2 hours of discussion tasked the Commission and European Parliament with taking the necessary steps to ensure that the agreement can enter into force on November 1. Johnson is facing an uphill battle to build a majority after the Northern Irish Democratic Unionist Party rejected the revised deal, describing it as driving a coach and a horse through the professed sanctity of the Belfast Agreement. And a newborn baby is fighting for her life after she was discovered buried alive in a clay pot in northern India. Doctors say she remained in a critical condition, suffering from septicemia and a dangerously low platelet count. Healthcare workers believe there are chances for survival, but it can only be determined after a week. A senior police officer in the district where the girl was found told reporters that he suspects the parents' involvement in her burial because no one came forward even after the case has been widely publicized. The newborn was accidentally found on Thursday by a villager who was burying his own daughter, who was a stillborn. Police have lodged a criminal case against unknown persons and say they are looking for the girl's parents. They have not speculated any possible motives, but India's gender ratio is one of the worst in the world. Women are often discriminated against socially, and girls are seen as a financial burden, particularly among poor communities. Police freed about 500 men and boys from an Islamic school in northern Nigeria yesterday during a raid in what authorities said is the third such operation in less than a month, bringing the total of people freed from the abusive conditions this month alone to about 1,000. The boys had been chained to walls, molested and beaten, and according to the president, the government is under pressure to take urgent action to free the potentially thousands of other children who remain in similar schools across Nigeria. Another purported Islamic school where captives were chained to the walls, some beaten so badly they needed help walking, was raided in September of this year. Two sources at the scene told reporters that 5 staff had been arrested, and police has since declined to comment on the issue. The leader of Hong Kong's largest pro-democracy group has been taken to a hospital after being attacked. Photographs on social media showed Jimmy Sham of the Civil Human Rights Front lying in the streets, covered in blood. It came hours after the territory's leader suspended her annual address after being heckled in the parliament. Mass protests in support of greater democracy in the territory began in June and shows no sign of abating. The CHRF said he was set upon by a group of 5 hammer-wielding men in the Mongkok district of Kowloon Peninsula and left with head injuries. It added that he was conscious as he was taken to the hospital and was resting there in a stable condition. This is the second time Mr. Sham had been attacked since the protests began. The CHRF linked the attack to government supporters who are suspected of assaulting other pro-democracy activists in recent months. That wraps up today's Week in Review. For more on these stories, please visit our Facebook and YouTube page for more news. Let's take a look at today's tech news with Kumar Doshi. I'm Whitney Prasad saying have a great weekend.
The family of missing Berbice boat captain 20-year-old Vishnu Seeram is still holding on to the hopes of his safe return, despite the chances are very slim at this point. Here is that report. Described as a bubbly young man with the aim of providing a better life for his family, 20-year-old Vishnu Singh is missed dearly by his family. The young man, in the company of 3 others on October 5th, departed the number 66 Village Wharf for Dutch waters with the hopes of returning in 14 days. But this plan went awry when police discovered the abandoned boat Sarah 1 on Friday last at the Fort Wellington foreshore with bloodstains on the missing crew. Police have since recovered the bodies of 2 crew members, Lamar Patrick 20 and Kawal Kasoon 36, but Vishnu Siram and Marvin Tameshwar are still to be found. Siram's mother, speaking to Globespan 24x7 News via a telephone interview, relayed the last conversation she had with her son.
He left on Saturday morning. That's the last thing he walked up on his yard. He kissed me, tell him, Mom, I try my best to go make a trip to pay out the money. He tell him, okay, we should go law. And he gone until Friday night when the police come, that one I can hear back. Until today, I don't find any signal of harm, but I'm nothing.
According to the woman, family members are starved for information, as the police have not disclosed anything yet regarding search efforts. The distraught woman told Globespan 24x7 News that the family is hoping for his safe return, despite the other crew members have been found dead.
Right now, I don't know if my son alive, and if my son alive, I'm happy to find back my son if he's alive, or if anyway there, if he can be back alive, I happy to die, if he can come home alive, so I'm happy to see back him alive.
According to her, on multiple occasions, she begged her son to find a job that does not require him to go out to sea, but he was firm that this is what he wanted to do.
There's a wrong, and I told him lots of times to Kevin, stop the sea walk. I call him Kevin. I tell he stopped sea walk because when I watch the news, I just see every time the sea always get a problem and nothing doing. And then he tell Mr. Mommy, why are you going to find a job on road, you know? He tried to get a job on road. He come out to the supermarket store. He search. There is no job. Sometimes he will come, people say it's full of. They don't have a thing, and then he won't be out no money. So you have to go and get the job. So that's why the needness, take a daily bread, make left out and go there. And he knows when he go, yeah, let's just make up, you know, couple down and come back.
Search efforts are still ongoing to find the missing men. Police in Guyana are collaborating with Suriname authorities in their quest to find both men. Shikima Day for Globespan 24x7 News. Chief Justice Roxanne George Wilshire on Wednesday determined that the request of former Attorney General Anil Nandlal to deem the President and his cabinet resign following the successful passage of the December 21, 2018 no confidence motion is misconceived. The acting Chief Justice, in handing down her ruling, said the presentation of such an argument was baseless. Chief Justice acting George Wilshire said, open quote, "This application is not only wholly misconceived, it is vexatious and an absolute abuse of the process of the court," end quote. Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams said government is pleased with the ruling since it validates several stances that were taken by the coalition.
The decision of the Lord Chief Justice has restored the positions with the rule of law in Guyana. And it's a very important principle for a hierarchical system of courts that you follow precedents. And the principle of stare decisis is that you follow the precedents set by the higher courts. And since the CCJ had already determined this issue, whether the cabinet and the government should resign, it was not fit nor proper, and it was of no legal effect for you to come to the lowest court to seek to have that decision of the court, CCJ, the apex court, overturned.
Minister Williams also added that he fully agrees with the learned CJ's opinion that the constant run to the courts is quite vexing.
Our courts are exhibiting great patience, as I see it, because this is a matter that has been ventilated within the last maybe 8 to 9 months in Guyana and in the courts, all the courts, Court of Appeal, CCJ. And to me, the Lord Chief Justice was correct by saying it's a vexatious matter, you know. And Mr. Nandlal has to be careful that he does not become a vexatious litigant, because he was part and parcel of the representation of the leader of the opposition at all levels, CCJ, Court of Appeal, High Court. And it is not fit for him and right for him as an officer of the court to try to seek to come to the first instance judge and try to raise the same issue.
Williams added that the courts should not be abused and the CCJ never illegitimated the coalition government, but the government to date remains restricted in their actions in compliance with the CCJ's ruling. The Chief Justice relied heavily on the judgment of the CCJ in its consequential orders of July 12. She stated that, open quote, the pronouncement of the CCJ and the orders made in the consequential judgment of July 12 must be read dispassionately and objectively. And while the applicant may be dissatisfied with the conclusion of the CCJ, he cannot seek to overturn or reinterpret it by filing an application such as this, end quote. Given the paradigm, the learned Chief Justice determined that there could not have been and cannot by any requirement for a mandatory order compelling the President and Cabinet to resign. However, attorney for the opposition Anil Nandlal expressed his shock and disappointment with the court's ruling.
This is indeed a shocking ruling. Every Guyanese by now must be aware of the clear language of Article 106.6 of the Constitution. That is, that upon the successful passage of a no-confidence motion, the President, inclusive of the Cabinet, inclusive of the President, shall resign. Mandatory, clear, unambiguous language. And here it is. We have approached the court. There's a Cabinet that's refusing to resign. And the Constitutional Court of the country is telling us that because the CCJ did not make that order, then forever we are in perpetual error. In other words, the doctrine of precedent and the doctrine of stare decisis are now superior to the Constitution of the country. The Constitution is the supreme law, not no ordinary principle of stare decisis or doctrine of precedent. Those are elementary, very low-rank principles. The Constitution is the supreme law of Guyana, and that unfortunately is not being upheld by the court. So this decision must be appealed in the interest of constitutionality, and it certainly has plunged the country in deeper constitutional.
President Granger, on the sidelines of the accreditation ceremony for the new German ambassador to Guyana, had posited that the circumstances are different and require an entirely different approach to ensure the government functions within the confines of its constitutional limitation, despite the court's ruling.
In this instance, on today, the 16th of October, I don't see the likelihood of that arising. The country cannot be without a government. The country cannot be without a president. And our interpretation of the Constitution is that I remain president until another president is elected. After the general election, we've decided on a date for the general elections, and we have obeyed the orders of the CCJ, in that we have complied with the conventions for interim administration. So we are behaving ourselves, we are not engaging in projects. I haven't traveled overseas apart from my health examinations. We are not planning a budget. By this time we would have completed our budget. So we are an interim administration, and I'm observing those regulations. But the country cannot be without a government, and I cannot be removed unless elections are held.
Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire made her determinations by applying the principle of stare decisis, which is the legal principle of determining points in litigation according to its precedent. As expressed, the opposition intends to have the CJ's ruling appealed forthwith. In other news, fresh out of the numerous legal challenges, the Guyana Elections Commission may once again be in need of the court's advice in determining key issues that have been a bone of contention among the commissioners. Kingsley Bryan provides an in-depth analysis of the situation there in this report.
Following yet another lengthy meeting of the Guyana Elections Commission on Tuesday, commissioners left torn apart on what will be done with the identifications cards that have not been uplifted since 2008, and how to treat with those persons who have not verified their registration during the ongoing claims and objection exercise. In this regard, government-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander said that the Commission is exploring a method that will highlight persons who fail to complete their verification.
Invitation to electors who did not participate in the house-to-house exercise whose names are on the preliminary list to come forward and do a verification. Which verification, if not done, could result in their names being highlighted on the eventual voters list. So there will be no deletion of names, but the names will be highlighted on the eventual voters list.
But PPP nominated commissioners contend that if that approach is taken, countless persons would be disenfranchised.
So they're trying the hardest they can to get as many people as they can not to exercise their franchise. You can't disenfranchise people. And that's a battle I will fight to the last breath. Okay? So we didn't come to a decision.
Shaddick stressed that a highlighted name on the list will obviously arouse questions in the minds of presiding officers and create much confusion.
Because if you highlight somebody and somebody in some polling station does not allow that person to vote, never remedy you got. You got to go for an elections petition which never gets heard. You know what I mean? So all of this is what antagonizes people. And what we want is for people to be satisfied that there is a process that is fair to everybody. But apparently, there are some people who don't care.
Another contentious matter that was heavily debated at yesterday's meeting was the Commission's proposed decision to have those persons removed from the list who have not uplifted their ID card following the 2008 registration exercise. On this issue, Commissioner Shaddick is insistent that failure to uplift your identification card is not reason enough to be omitted from the National Registrar of Registrants.
There's a law that says you can deregister people, but then they got rules that say what deregistering means. The person dies or the person goes mad. Right? Not because they ain't come to collect the ID card.
Alexander in his arguments rejected the suggestions that the removal of the names of persons from the NRR merely because they have not collected their national ID cards will potentially disenfranchise persons. Rather, Alexander said the use of uncollected ID cards would be as a method for objection.
Using the ID card issue to determine the presence of our voters, their existence, it's like an objection. So the issue is not the ID card. The issue is that these persons, since 2008 and beyond 2008, have not in any way presented themselves to be present, to be known, to be alive, to be existing, to be resident. And the calling them, writing to them gives us an opportunity to make a determination in the context of like an objection as to where are they? Are they here? Are they real people at this time?
Commissioner Ben, in his remarks, also said this process would deny many eligible persons the opportunity to prevent themselves as a voter.
On the question of the cancellation of the 20,000 or whatever ID cards, clearly there may be some persons who exist. There may be some who would have died. There may be some who are not in the country at the moment. But if they come in during an elections process, they have a right to vote since they are already on the NRR. And the removal of their name by means of putting out these notices and not having them come forward, whereabouts are known, is a means of denying persons the ability to put themselves forward as an elector on election day.
On the flip side, Commissioner Alexander said the National Registration Act does provide for the removal of names, but noted that this process is to provide an opportunity to voters, since 2 previous attempts to locate them proved futile.
That's not the issue. The issue is that we're giving them an opportunity to let us know all that you were asking about. They're being given the opportunity. So no one is just simply denying them the opportunity.
Ben, in response to how many stand to be disenfranchised by the process if it is agreed to, said that approximately 20,000 persons could be removed from the NRR. To this end, both commissioners from the opposition side stress that such a move will result in another court challenge, which could further delay the elections, as is the intent of the coalition-nominated commissioners. However, Alexander also said that there is a final place for the matter to be settled, but reiterated that it is not their intention to disenfranchise anyone. He concluded that the government-aligned commissioners will not be going to court since it is the opposition's failure to reach a decision that is actually resulting in a delay.
We are not going to court.
If they take it,
they will be delayed.
And that will...
They've delayed in the past and blamed, so they may be delaying again to blame.
Recently, GCOM was forced to withdraw an order that had required registered persons to turn up at offices countrywide with their registration records to prove their existence. That order was replaced with the customary claims and objections period. Reporting from the Guyana Elections Commission in Kingston, for Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
In other news, President David Granger has ordered a commission of inquiry into the recent horrific accident at Friendship, East Bank, Demerara, which claimed the lives of 5 persons. But many are already questioning whether it is in fact necessary at this point. The president gave reasons for his decision. Let's take a look. Guyanese are still reeling from the horrific accident at Friendship on the east bank of Demerara that claimed the lives of 5 persons, including a newlywed couple, early Tuesday morning. The accident reportedly occurred at around 5:30 hours when a police vehicle driven by Constable Ronald Barker of the Presidential Guard slammed into motor vehicle PPP 515 driven by Guyana Defense Force Sergeant Leon Tucker. The vehicles were proceeding in opposite directions. Head of State President David Granger has ordered a commission of inquiry to be conducted into the accident. The president, speaking at the sidelines of an event this morning, recalled that when he visited the scene, the image of dead bodies strewn on the road will be forever etched into his memory.
It's very difficult for me to describe my emotions. From a personal point of view, it was very distressing to see, 4 dead, 4 bodies on the road at that hour in the morning. Extremely distressing. I hope I never have to witness a scene like that again.
According to the president, there was no reason for the driver of the police vehicle to be speeding at that time of the accident.
It was inexplicable that at 5:45 in the morning, clear morning, no rain, no obstacles on the road, there could be such a horrific accident. One vehicle coming up from Georgetown, I presume, the other coming down, moving northwards. There's no reason, it is not as though there were animals or some obstacles on the road which had to be avoided.
Further, he said that more attention needs to be paid to the selection of drivers for the presidential convoy to ensure that such incidents never occur again.
Third, from a governmental and administrative point of view, I must admit that from the time of the arrival of the fleet of vehicles from the People's Republic of China, we had instructed, the NSE had instructed that there should be careful selection of drivers. The vehicles should be regularly inspected and maintained to be free of mechanical faults. There should be careful supervision of the use of those vehicles so they last as long a time as possible. And
in a previous statement released, President Granger added that steps will also be taken to ensure that regulations, standing operating procedures, inspections, and careful selection and training of drivers are measures which are put into place. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. On Thursday, former Canadian Chief Electoral Officer John Perry Kingsley has been retained by the Guyana Elections Commission to provide technical support to the electoral body, given the country's upcoming general and regional elections on March 2, 2020. GCOM's public relations officer, Yolanda Ward, confirmed that Kingsley is in Guyana to provide technical support to the Commission, particularly the Secretariat. According to Ward, he will be assisting the operations of the Secretariat, and based on his experience, he will share best practices as GCOM implements its work plan. The public relations officer also added that Kingsley will make periodical visits, and as the date for election nears, he will be here in full time. Kingsley completed his first meeting with the full commission on Tuesday and senior management officials on Wednesday, according to the PRO. President David Granger has stated that while he is disappointed with the apparent lack of prosecution into what he called Guyana's troubled past or troubled times, it must be understood that the acquisition of credible evidence poses the main challenge. Kingsley Bryan provides the details in this report.
On the sidelines of the accreditation for the new German non-resident ambassador to Guyana, the president expressed his disappointment that not much has come from established commission of inquiries into what he deemed the country's dark, troubled past, and also the fact that it creates an environment where justice is perceived to be delayed. But the head of state noted that while he is disappointed with the progress, it must be understood that there were countless obstacles, the main one being the lack of credible evidence.
Massacre. But it pointed to the fact that there has not been any smoking gun, that evidence has not been sufficient to bring anybody to justice, and that many of the possible witnesses have been killed or eliminated.
The president at the time was responding to questions as to why convicted drug trafficker Roger Khan has not been made to answer to any alleged charges to date, even though his prosecution has been long touted or thought to be concrete. He said the fact that witnesses to the crime are not forthcoming is hindering the quality of investigations.
This is a major factor, that there might be people out there who are unwilling to speak because it might be felt that persons who disclose evidence which will incriminate the actual culprits might themselves be eliminated.
President Granger said, too, that it is the intention of his government to bring these matters to closure, but there still seems to be a general feeling of fear associated with the process.
We would like to bring these matters to closure to the relatives of the persons who were killed. But Lindo Creek was a good lesson for us, that we may spend millions of dollars, we may interview persons, but those persons who are culprits and those persons who might have been implicated or might even have knowledge about what took place have not come forward and given us the type of evidence on which we can go to court and bring convictions. It's very disappointing for me, but that is part of the reality of what happened during the Troubles, that people were easily eliminated.
The head of state relayed that it creates a strange situation for lawmen, especially when one takes into account the recent killings that must be added to the list. And it is a clear indicator that solving all will be an uphill battle.
Even now, people are being executed. It is difficult for the police to find the motivation behind such execution. One of the most outstanding and most notorious is the execution of Crum Ewing. So it's an ongoing task of the law enforcement agencies. I am convinced that the police force would like to move ahead further, much faster, but a lot of people have been killed and dead men tell no tales.
The period of troubles referred to by the president spans August 11, 1999 to December 3, 2011, during which there were 3 massacres: Lusignan, where 11 people were killed, Bartica, where another 12 were killed, and Lindo Creek, where 7 miners were slaughtered. Beside these, there were countless of other killings that were believed to be extrajudicial in nature. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Meanwhile, speculation that former Army Chief Mark Phillips is closely aligned to the opposition's People's Progressive Party has been put to rest now that the PPPC General Secretary Barry Jack Dio has confirmed that the top Army official has been accepted into the rank and file of the party. However, Jack Dio was quick to clarify that Phillips has not been confirmed as the prime ministerial candidate for the party in the next elections, but there is a high possibility that he could be in the running. Reason being, Phillips could be nominated for the post during the selection process.
I met with Mark Phillips and I said to him that we would welcome him on our team, that he is going to contest the elections. I believe he's a great person with, I know of his skills, not necessarily personally, but I know of his skills in terms of finance and his security credentials, and I've heard a lot about his integrity. And he would be a welcome addition to our team. I made it clear to him that the process that we would follow, I don't know if any one of our members will nominate him. It's very likely that his name could be nominated too, because members of the Central Committee, the members of Parliament, anyone could nominate a person, and we will treat each name on its merit and then make a decision.
Jack Dio's comment comes one day after Globespan 24x7 News posted an image of Phillips appearing alongside PPPC's presidential candidate Irfan Ali during a public discussion. The men were discussing the party's plans for addressing issues in the security sector. This is the first planned discussion to have featured the two men who have long been perceived as running mates. Our social media post led to a massive discussion, with some persons stating that Phillips could be Ali's running mate, while others were in total disagreement with him being on the PPPC slate for 2020. In his weekly press conference, Jack Dio explained that Phillips was not promised any position, much less prime ministerial candidate, but he was assured that there is space for him.
He said, I have no expectation, I know the process, and I want to be part of that team, the team going forward, because the prime ministership is not the only thing we're looking for. Let me make it clear, we are not trading positions. We're not going to do like what AFC and PNC doing now, to say, oh, you hold on to this ministry, we hold on to this one, which one got a bigger budget so we could hustle more, etc. The PPP will go into these elections making no commitments. We are working on a platform that is inclusive. We want progress for all Guyanese.
On the PPP. Based on media reports, some sources close to the PPP believes that former Junior Finance Minister Gwan Edgehill, who is speculated to be in the running as well, should instead be the prime ministerial candidate. Just 3 months before the 2015 general elections, the PPPC had announced former Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Elizabeth Harper as its PM candidate. Political analysts and commentators claimed that back then, the PPPC was looking for gender and ethnic balance in replacing then Prime Minister Samuel Hines, but Harper's name has not been mentioned. And finally, on Friday, Guyana's newest political party, the Citizenship Initiative, is at its official launching ceremony on Thursday evening, has pledged to strive for constitutional reform and never to join any of the major political parties. We'll tell you more in this report. Tired by the broken promises being given by the current major players in Guyana's political scene, has led to the emergence of a new political party. The Citizenship Initiative, TCI, comprises a group of friends, some with no political background and others who were associated but decided to part ways because of their unethical practices. At the party's launching held at the Herdsmanston Lodge on Thursday evening, the event was well attended by Guyanese who were eager to hear what changes they proposed for a new Guyana. The question was asked by attendees in the audience whether or not the party has plans to join the big league parties, a trend currently common with such small parties. executive member of TCI, Ruel Johnson, said the party has no plans to do such, but only to push for constitutional reform.
So I answered two questions. All our goal is to end up in Parliament. As the key platform has to do with leverage in Parliament. Now, answer the question of coalition. Let me say very explicitly now. Our message is that this adversarial politics with two giants continues to be primary hurdle to development in Ghana. Coalition, either two, is not an option. That doesn't mean you don't intend to go and say this is adversarial and this is we want to cross you down and stuff like that. I shall address it. But from a very practical perspective, you can't say that you have the goals that you want to attain, to change the status quo and then join status quo. It doesn't make sense.
TCI member Shazam Ali, a web developer, stressed that for years, the PPPC and the APNU-AFC have both shared power, but the old-age struggles remain. Meanwhile, Rhonda Ann Lam, a teacher with no political background, said Guyana's deep-seated ethnic insecurities and racially polarized voting patterns caused her to venture into politics.
Guyanese are jaded. They're also very vocal against those who they believe differ from them in ethnicity and political beliefs, and these are often crudely spouted. They have traditionally ingrained voting patterns, and breaking it has never been fully achieved to date. The words of Machiavelli come to mind here. It ought to be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things, because the innovator had for enemy all those who have done well under the old conditions and lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new.
TCI revealed the 6 main pillars their campaign will be focused on: international leadership, social cohesion, security and equality, infrastructure for the future, education and human resource development, economic security, diversification and growth, and finally, participatory citizenship, enhanced governance, and public accountability. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. In other news, former Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, retired Rear Admiral Gary Best, said that the GDF and the People's National Congress reform did not acquire enough information and evidence to charge convicted drug dealer Shahid Roger Khan with other crimes.
If you recognize the party in opposition, would have had primarily anecdotal evidence. The party in opposition didn't have the government apparatus to do investigations, so its information, in large part, would have been anecdotal. It would have received information from some witnesses who may have came forward and stated things that occurred that they would have witnessed. But in a state, we expect the apparatus to remain intact. So what the party expected when it came into government, that it would therefore find whatever evidence was gathered by the state and the state institutions to deal with the issue of crimes that were perpetrated by Mr. Roger Khan. So for example, the police force, they had almost 9 years before the party came into power since the issue of Mr. Roger Khan. So what happens to that information? That information is gathered by state agencies. I mean, you have the criminal side, you also have the civil side. So from the party's perspective, in opposition, it couldn't do more than observe, receive, and have anecdotal information, but not information that they could have used when they got into office to prosecute, but rely on the state apparatus to have held that information so it can take information and make the best possible case against them.
Asked further whether he ever came across any potential evidence that could have been used to charge Khan, who was convicted of drug trafficking in the United States, the PNCR executive had this to say.
Correct. The Guyana Defense Force did play a role, as opposed to the Army. The Guyana Defense Force did play a role in the Joint Services operation, because the Defense Force, when deployed, is deployed in support of the Guyana Police Force. So yes, bits and pieces of information came within the military intelligence unit which was shared with the Guyana Police Force. So all the information we have picked up in relation to Mr. Khan was shared with the Guyana Police Force during that period of time. Did we receive information that the state could have acted on criminally and lead a charge against Mr. Khan. I don't think we did. We have a lot of information that when processed perhaps could have gotten to that stage. What I do know, and you mentioned it, that the Guyana Defense Force as a state institution played a key role in supporting the police to ensure that Mr. Khan could have eventually been renditioned in Trinidad and charged in the United States. So we did have a state institution, some state institutions that function notwithstanding the state of Guyana at that time.
Best encourage persons with evidence to come forward, as the President David Granger-led administration would provide as much protection to persons who need to come forward and give that evidence. He stated that in some instances, persons could be compelled to provide evidence. After serving more than 8 years imprisonment for cocaine trafficking in the United States, Khan, who was considered to be the country's most powerful drug trafficker, returned to Guyana on September 21, 2019. In June 2006, Khan was arrested in Paramaribo with 3 of his bodyguards in a sting operation. Suriname authorities said police netted more than 200 kilograms of cocaine, the biggest cocaine haul that year. Khan was flown to Trinidad, handed over to immigration authorities, who then turned him into the custody of U.S. officials. He was immediately arraigned at the Brooklyn Federal Court on June 30, 2006 on a charge of conspiring to import cocaine. He was sentenced in October 2009. The People's National Congress Reform had long claimed that Khan was allegedly linked to the state-sponsored death squads that had been allegedly responsible for the killings of 400 mainly Afro-Guyanese. The party had promised to go after Khan for these alleged murders and secure Khan certain convictions. To date, no one has come forward, nor is there any substantial evidence to charge him. Meanwhile, at his weekly press conference of October 10, opposition leader Barrow Jagdeo had deemed the actions of the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority misguided, since the institution of fines on broadcast entities is a clear indication that the agency is under political directives, since the accusation is baseless and the charges were laid in an attempt to muzzle free speech.
We have had to file a case, the Freedom Radio, against GNBA. So that's another APNU group out there, APNU AFC group, and they're trying to muzzle free speech. So guess what? We were fined $75,000 for calling Granger a charlatan. You can call him a dictator, but not a charlatan. You get fined $75,000.
GNBA has sanctioned 2 separate entities for what it deems breaches to the country's Broadcasting Act. These entities are Freedom Radio and MTV. The opposition leader at that juncture said the GNBA is merely policing the entities at the behest of the government.
They find Freedom Radio. They want to police what we say on Freedom Radio. We can't talk about elections being rigged when we realize what the game was at the GCOM. Their game was at GCOM. They were planning to rig the elections.
However, at a press conference hosted by the Broadcasting Authority on Thursday, Chairman of the GNBA, Leslie Sobers, said this is not the case.
This authority has no political agenda and is not being used by the present government as an agent to quell freedom of expression or simply make life difficult for any broadcaster.
Sobers stressed that the authority mandates is gleaned in the Broadcasting Act of 2011, which was piloted through Parliament and assented to by former President Jagdeo himself. The GNBA said the authority did not sanction the aforementioned agencies for their calling of the President a charlatan.
I am saying this without fear of contradiction, that the GNBA did not sanction Freedom Radio or MTV for airing any comment against His Excellency that had to do with calling the President a charlatan. This contention by the Leader of the Opposition can only be a reaction of his own conscience and knowledge that it is defamatory of one's reputation to publish disparaging comments that cannot be justified.
Sobers said the authority takes very seriously the clause in the Act that stipulates the authority must maintain the order within the confines of the broadcasting, such as the fostering of national unity and a harmonious society, which in the eyes of the GNBA, these entities are in blatant breach of. He said there are numerous acts of vulgarity that were recorded during the PPP's reign and cited a few examples and noted that it is for this very reason the two broadcasting outfits were sanctioned.
Where is the freedom of expression allowed? Can only some enjoy it and others to be penalized if they do the same thing? Should Freedom Radio not be called in if they say things on the air that are defamatory or unsubstantiated? Can Mr. Ed Lane of MTV get up on the television and accuse all ministers of this government to be taking bribes on a daily basis and never utter a single shred of evidence to support that contention? And that's why we called it MTV, not anything to do with calling the president a charlatan.
The chairman said the two entities have had 53 infractions since the beginning of 2019. Sobers concluded that the authority has never been in the business of violating citizens' constitutional right to freedom of expression, but stated that the right does not ignore or violate any other act in the Constitution, such as the Defamation Act, which the authority has not been an enforcer of. And that has brought us to the end of today's news. We wish you a safe and productive week ahead. Until next time, goodbye.